All right, we are going to continue with talking about slope, but now talk specifically about slope when it comes to um, actual lines and how we use that to write lines. So the most common form you should be comfortable with when you're talking about writing lines is called slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form should be the one that you're used to using in Algebra 1. It is this form, y equals mx plus b. The m, the number in front of x, refers to the slope of the line, and the b value refers to the y-intercept, meaning where does it cross the y-axis. So this would be something you are super comfortable with using, with finding, with helping you draw, given that form. So a couple things that you could be asked to do. You could be asked to write an equation of a line if you're given the slope and the y-intercept. So we're going to start with really, really easy ones. If they tell you that the slope is 6 and they tell you that the y-intercept is 0, 5, that means your equation is y equals 6x plus 5. Slope always goes as the coefficient of x, and the y-intercept is always the constant at the end. Second one tells us our slope, again, is -4, so it goes in front of x, and the y-intercept is 0, 3, meaning you have a plus 3 at the end. Another option is it could be given to you visually. So this is one where you'll have to look at the graph and figure out what are the slope and what's the y-intercept. So I usually make a little kind of chart for myself off to the side. So my y-intercept is usually very easy to identify. It's wherever it crosses the y-axis, and in this case it's 4. Your slope, there's a couple ways to do it. You could pick 2 points and use your slope formula. I often find visually it's easier to just count and say, okay, to get from this point here to this point down here, so I'm going to use these 2 points, how did I get there? Well, I went down. Looks like I went down 1, 2, 3 units, and then I went to the right 1 unit. So if I go down 3 and I go right 1, that means my slope is -3/1, or in other words, -3. And you'll notice it is going to be a negative slope because this line is falling. It is going down as you go from left to right. So my equation is y equals -3x plus 4. Another thing that you'll be asked to do is take equations, linear equations, and rewrite them in slope-intercept form. So this, when it says that, that means you need to get y by itself. You need it to be in y equals form. So first thing I want to do is I want to move the x term to the other side. That's going to be done by either adding or subtracting. So when I subtract 3x, I get 2y equals -3x plus 18. And then I'm going to divide everything by 2 to get y by itself. So I have y equals -3/2 x plus 9. If you can reduce, do so. If you can't, you can leave it as a fraction. We never write slope as a decimal, so you want to try to not go to any sort of decimal form in this lesson. So that means my slope is -3/2, and my y-intercept is the 0.09. Next one is the same idea. I want to get y by itself, so I can get it in y equals mx plus b form. So I'm going to subtract 5x. So I have -4y equals -5x plus 16. Divide everything by a -4 to get the y by itself. When I do that, I have a -5 divided by a -4, so you're going to cancel both of those negatives. You get a positive 5/4, which doesn't reduce. And then 16 divided by -4 is -4. So that tells me that my slope is 5/4, and my y-intercept is the 0.0, -4. That's going to be where it crosses the y-axis. So when you're asked to graph a linear equation, there's 4 steps, and if you want to jot these in your notes or take a screenshot, I'm just going to kind of talk you through them. So the first thing you want to do is make sure it's in slope-intercept form. Sometimes they already are, and you can get started right away without any extra work. Sometimes you have to take the steps that we just talked about, getting y by itself, to get it in that form. Then you want to plot your y-intercept. That's always going to be the 0.0b on your y-axis. Use your slope to figure out the second point. Remember, when you're talking slope, your top number is going to tell you if we go up or down. It's a horrible arrow. And then your bottom number, your denominator, is going to tell me if we go right or left. And then once you have those two points, you're going to just draw a line through the 2 points and continue to extend it. I don't need you to do any additional points after that. So for one like this, I'm asked to graph it. I'm going to get y by itself, and by doing that, I'm going to add 2x to both sides. So I have y equals 2x plus 3. I'm going to write down my slope and my y-intercept. You always want to write slope as a fraction, so if it's a whole number like 2, you want to write it as 2/1. And then my y-intercept I'm going to write as the 0.03. I'm going to start at 0,3, so on my y-axis I'm going to go up to 0,3. Draw it real easy for you to see. And then from that point, my slope tells me since it's positive 2, I'm going to go up 2. Since it's positive 1, I'm going to go right 1. So from that point, I'm going to go up 2 units, over 1 unit to this point right there, and then I'm going to draw a line through that point. Again, I went up and I went over to get that second point. I went up 2, and then I went over to the right 1 to get the second point. This one, again, y needs to be by itself to get started, so I'm going to add 2/3 x to both sides. So I have y equals positive 2/3 x and a positive 2. So that tells me my slope is 2 over 3 and my y-intercept is 0, 2. So on my y-axis, I'm going to go to 0, 2. It does not like me to make a point on my graph like that. So 0, 2. And then I'm going to use my slope to go up 2 from that point and then to the right 3. So I'm going to go up 2 units. I'm going to go right 3 units. And I kind of just count with my pencil. So up 1, 2, over 1, 2, 3 gives me that second point. So I'm then going to connect the dots. Oh, I kind of missed both points. Not the best graph. Let me try that again. So I'm starting at 0, 2, and then I'm going up 2 over 3. Let's see if I can get that's a much better line. And again, you'll notice it has a positive slope and it's a rising line. This one's already in slope-intercept form, so I don't have any extra work at the beginning. I do want to mention, since the slope is negative, I'll tell you what I do to kind of help me. If my slope is negative, I always put the negative with the numerator. I like being consistent with that, and then that'll help me graph it the same way each time. You can put the negative with the numerator or the denominator. You can't put it in both places because then it would cancel, but I think if you always do it the same way, you're less likely to make a mistake. So I'm starting at the point 0, 2 again, so just like the last one, I'm starting up 2 units. Because my numerator is negative, that means I actually want to go down. So I'm going to go down 3. I'm still going to the right 4. So from that point that I put on my graph, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3 points, and then I'm going to go over 4 points, and I'm going to end up right here. So down 3, right 4, and then I'm going to connect those dots. It is nice when you do delta math questions. It will allow you to put points on a graph. It will allow you to connect points on the graph, and you can kind of tweak your line if it doesn't look the way that you want it to look. This one is not in slope-intercept form, so I need to start the process by getting y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 5x. So I have negative 2y equals negative 5x minus 4. Lots of negatives in this problem. However, when I divide everything by a negative 2, all those negatives are going to cancel. So I get y equals, a negative divided by a negative is a positive 5 over 2x. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is a positive 2. So my slope is 5 over 2. Everything is positive. My y-intercept is 2 again. I don't know why I keep ending up with 2. The theme of the lesson here. From that point 0, 2, I'm going to go up 5 spaces. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go to the right 2. Make sure I count correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 2. So I end up there. And then connect the dots. And that gives me my line. And that is the end of the lesson. So from here, you should be able to identify slope, you should be able to identify y-intercept, and you should be able to use those two things to graph any line. Make sure when you're done and you draw your line, if it's a positive slope, it's going up like this one. If it's a negative slope, it should be falling down like one of the previous ones. Zero slope, I do want to mention that. Zero slope will be in the form y equals a number. So let's say it's y equals 6. That is going to be something that has zero slope because there's no x's. So that's going to be horizontal. If it is in the form x equals, so like x equals 3, that one has no slope. That one is undefined and will look like this. So those are your special cases. You might want to jot those down just to help you know when do I draw something that's horizontal and when do I draw something that's vertical. And there you have it.